Well, join us to unpack this now. We have Ibifuro Apiafi Holiday. She's the head of account management at Smile ID. Joining me right here. I got a tongue twister there. Great to have you. Good morning.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So I guess in this digital world, having an identity and an identity that can be, easily, accessed, people they know who you are. If you're going to play in the financial system, people need to know you. You have know your customer and all of that. So talk to me about what you're seeing, so far when it comes to, digital identity in a continent like Africa and what we're seeing in Nigeria so far.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at digital identity across the African continent, we're starting to see that biometrics has become very, very mainstream. We've gone past the days where people were okay to just onboard people by using the identity number only. We're starting to see that most of our partners are now insisting, happily for us, insisting that the users also provide a level of biometrics as part of the authentication process so that we can be sure that the person that has presented that ID number or that ID document is the real owner of the identity, really. Additionally, what we're seeing is multi-layered identity verification. So beyond just using the ID number, we're starting to see a trend where people are also making sure that the phone number that's been provided is actually, again, belongs to the individual. We're seeing AML checks because, considering individuals want to be certain that they're not onboarding bad actors into their financial ecosystem. It's super important that financial services organizations, as well as e-commerce and some other sectors, are starting to make sure that they're going a level further in terms of verification and knowing the people that they let into their ecosystem.
Is it getting easier or harder to identify people?
It depends on the market. I think that it is definitely getting a lot easier in the sense that, at least at Smile ID, we've done a lot of work in terms of building the railways for financial services and other sectors to layer on and build across multiple markets. So we've built our products in such a way that if a partner wants to scale into multiple markets, it's pretty easy. As long as you're using our products, it's as simple as switching on or switching off ID types, right? So in that regard, it's getting a bit easier. On the other hand, we're still seeing a situation in some markets where there's no identity database that exists, like we have in Nigeria, for instance, or in South Africa, or in Kenya. So there's still a need to rely on documents in those markets, which is fine for us. We're able to do that, but sometimes there's some nuance to doing those document authentication requests. But yeah, so it's a mix.
Like, looking at a country like Nigeria, we have NIN, we have BVN, and some would say we have a lot of identification, when it comes to a country like Nigeria, but it still seems there's still that gap.
So
right there, especially with financial services.
I would say that regulation by CBN has made it pretty clear what is required, especially for financial services institutions. So it's pretty clear that when you're onboarding a user for the first level, you're supposed to either take BVN or the NIN. Second level, you take the other. So if you take BVN in the first level, you need to make sure you've taken the NIN at the second level. So it's pretty prescriptive from a CBN regulatory perspective, and it's out there. And they've also insisted that now you also layer on biometrics into that process flow, again, in terms of increasing security and assuredness for the organizations to know that they're onboarding the right people. So I do think it's getting easier. I think it's a bit less complicated now that CBN has explicitly stated that this is how you go ahead and onboard these users. It's very prescriptive, and as long as organizations are following the steps and doing the right things, they should be fine.
So how does it help? We keep talking about the underserved, segment, of the society. We've heard about traditional banks not able to reach some of these people, but fintechs are able to somehow get there, with super agents and all of that. So how is digital identity, how's that helping to bridge that gap, especially for underserved areas?
So when you look at the underserved, we find that especially in Nigeria, you see that there's a lot of reliance on agents, like you mentioned.
Right.
And it's not just Nigeria, actually. We see that in South Africa and some other markets as well. Those agents are essentially your one-stop shop for financial services provision at this point in time. Gone are the days when individuals had to literally go into a bank branch and speak to someone to get service. Now with these agents, you're able to do that at your convenience in a local that's close to you. We're then able to, so beyond identity at the point of onboarding, we're now able to also do transaction authentication leveraging biometrics. So we're certain that person A opened this account, and this same person is the one that's come to do a transaction even at this agent location. So we're not just relying 100% on agents to handle these things. There's a level of authentication that is being done to make sure that the individual that's presenting is the real owner, and that's giving a lot of access to people that typically would need to travel long journeys to prove that they're the real owner of the account to then request for a transaction. You're able to do that remotely with these agent networks today.
Right. Yeah. So what are you seeing? We keep talking about, financial inclusion, at this point. I'm looking at continent. What are you seeing, going further, at this point, say next 5-10 years? Do you see more people included, and how is, digital identity going to help all of this?
100% see a lot more people being included, and again, it's the point around agency. I think there's a lot more reliance on the agency networks to get these financial services, let's say, distributed across even remote areas. And for us as Smile ID, we recently got into a partnership with MasterCard. We look at the partnership in the sense that we've built the digital identity rails, they've built the payment rails. We're seeing a trend of authentication and leveraging biometrics to confirm identity going beyond just onboarding to sort of more payments and securing payments. So that partnership works very well for us, and we believe that it will help drive the inclusion because, again, as long as people have the freedom from wherever they are with the device, their agent's device, to be able to prove their identity, it's easy for them to get into the digital ecosystem or the digital economy, and they can access services even beyond financial services. We're talking e-commerce, we're talking, ride-hailing, etc.
It should even get into markets, at this point, because everyone needs identity, even for shareholders. Yeah. We need to know who the shareholder is
100%.
Of a particular, company. So, looking at, Africa, the continent here, which countries would you say are leading when it comes to, digital identity?
When it comes to digital identity, it's definitely Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, that are the leaders. We see some other markets that they're doing the work. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I do believe that a lot of the government agencies really realize that there's a lot of work to be done. There are forums where they meet and try to learn from each other and ensure that they're developing as quickly as, South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, because identity is the key to unlocking.
I'm sure it cuts across politics too, voting.
There's an element.
There's an element in there.
There's of course an element.
We need to know who's voting at this point.
Yeah.
Well, it was great unpacking this with you. Ibifuro Apiafi Holiday, Head of Account Management at Smile ID. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.